questions. What do you think? Good answer. All right, now let's do it. Each gentleman had about 2 minutes to just kind of introduce themselves at the start. Again, as Aisha said at the start, he is a farmer, part owner of his farm and of his company. He's from Howe, Indiana. He has served as an Indiana state legislator and an Indiana state senator, and we will now give him his 2 minutes of introduction, Mr. Sussman.
Actually, he'll have 10 minutes.
I'm sorry, 10. Well, no. If you had a peanut butter parfait, you get 2.
I should have brought.
I mean, how many of the rest of you now want a peanut butter parfait? See?
I brought you one, Pat. I was all right.
Yeah, right. And the rule is, if you go a minute over, it's $20 in this pocket right here.
Well, first of all, I do apologize for being late. And, you know, I've been with these gentlemen now for quite a bit over the last year. That probably one of them could have even given my introductory speech as many times as we've heard each other give that. But anyway, it's good to be with you here. And as Pat said, I was down in Adams County and at a Lincoln Day dinner down there. But it's very good to be here. Good to see you all out this evening. And I know you all have been in the discussion already, but I think that just to give a couple of opening remarks, and I'll kind of keep it brief, just so we can get back into the questions, is just a little bit about myself. My wife Christy is here with me. We have 2 sons, Peyton and Preston, who are glad not to be with us tonight. They wanted a break from all of the long, boring meetings. And an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old can only take so much. And so they're with Grandpa and Grandma tonight. And we love them to death, and they're just the joy of our lives, and really the reason why we're doing what we're doing. Back in 2001, Christy and I, we were married in 2000. Peyton was born in 2001, and we were down at Christy's grandmother's house showing off Peyton and all excited about being new parents. And my dad called me one morning and said, "You have to turn on the TV real quickly." And so I ran out to the living room and we turned on the TV to watch the terrorists attack us on 9/11. And I'm sure you all remember where you were at that day as well. And as I was holding Peyton in my arms, thinking, you know, this little boy has his whole life in front of him. And what does the future hold for America? What does the future hold for Peyton? And what does the future hold for the children of our country and for the future of us? And it didn't take long for Christy and I to decide that we needed to get involved, that we needed to make a difference in our community to protect our freedoms, to protect our liberties, to protect the opportunities that we have as Americans. And so we got involved with the local Republican Party of LaGrange. We live up in Howe, right near Shipshewana. If you know where Shipshewana is at, a lot of ladies' heads are shaking. And I come from a family farming operation and never expected to get into politics. And we got involved, and they were looking for somebody to run for state representative, and we were at a committee meeting, and they said, why don't you run, Marlon? And I said, well, I've never thought about it, and I wouldn't even know what it takes. I said, why don't you give me a couple of weeks to think about it? They said, you actually have till tomorrow at noon. And so we found ourselves on our way to Indianapolis to run, and actually met Senator Cruz down there. And it's just neat how God opens doors, and met him there, and he walked us through the process of filing, and I had the chance to serve with Senator Cruz and many other good people at the Indiana State House for 3 terms, and now serving in the State Senate again as a seatmate to Senator Cruz. I keep following him around, and it's been such an honor and a privilege to serve the people of Northeast Indiana. And after this last election, it really came down to one of those decisions again. And one of the things that I have seen here in Indiana is if you have the right type of leadership, if you have people in government who are willing to make tough decisions and that are going to stand up for freedom and stand up for fiscal responsibility and family values, that you can make a difference. We've seen that here in Indiana. You look at the states around us, and you look at Michigan, Illinois, and Ohio, and they're sinking and ready. Partially the problem is they have a full-time legislature. We here in Indiana, we have a part-time legislature. And I'd argue the same thing would be good for Washington, D.C. That they spend a little less time in Washington and a little bit more time back home and living in the real world. And that's one of the things that I have seen over my time in office, is that if you have people of principle and people of values, that you can make a difference and you can change the course of a government. And if you look at Indiana and you look at Washington, D.C., it's 2 different courses. We have one state here in Indiana where we have led with responsibility. And, people I've heard our governor say this, and, people have asked, well, how do you do that, here in Indiana? And he said, it's a secret. And he said, I'll share it with you, but you don't spend more money than what you take in. And it's the same thing that my dad and my granddad taught me on the combine seat, is you can't spend more money than what you take in. It's the same business principles that we need in Washington, D.C., just like we have here in our daily lives, whether it's our home checkbook or whether it's a small business or whether it's our state government. It's those principles of not putting yourself in a vulnerable position of where you're going to have to strap yourself with debt, or you're going to be in a situation where we're going to have to raise taxes. And as Proverbs says, the borrower is the servant to the lender. And we're seeing that in Washington, D.C. They're not, well, they just raised taxes, but they've borrowed themselves to a point where they can't borrow anymore. They have maxed out the credit card. They're spending like drunken sailors. And that is what's wrong with Washington, is that they can't say no, as John said. And we need people of principle who are going to stand up and say no to those who keep having their hand out and say, you know what? The answer isn't in Washington, D.C. The answer is in America and in the American people. Christy, my wife, she put it best after the last election. She said, people voted to change Washington, not to change America. And that is what's happening right now, is the very fundamentals, the very values and principles that made America great are under attack. And we need people across this country, and especially right here in Indiana, where we can do something about it, to send somebody to Washington, D.C. that's going to be willing to stand up and fight for Indiana, to fight for Hoosiers, to fight for conservative values, and ones that will realize the impact that big government spending and a big government agenda does to those of us who live here and to our children and our grandchildren. So I'm excited to be here tonight, and I'm glad to see you here. And I believe that if we stand together, shoulder to shoulder, we can make a difference, and that we can send a message to Washington, D.C. And that, who would have thought, after a year ago, where a lot of folks counted the conservative party or the conservative movement to be on the roadside dead. But we have an opportunity that's not going to be given to us. It's going to be something we are going to have to work for and get back to those principles. Because even as a Republican Party, we spent too much. There were times when I just said, please veto a bill. Stop spending. You can't keep putting ourselves in this position because it was irresponsible. And I hope that we elect people that understand that. And I'm excited about what lies in store in front of us. And I believe that I'm honored to be elected to be the next U.S. Senator, that I will take those same principles and the same hard work ethic that I've used throughout my life to Washington, D.C. and stand up and fight for Hoosiers. So it's good to be with you, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you. And it is fortunate that you showed up to do your own intro, because the guys were more than willing. John wanted to talk about your record in the Indiana House. Richard wanted to talk about your record in the Indiana Senate, and Don wanted to talk about your prison record. So I think it's good that you're able to come, because they serve together. So I don't know. But we're glad that you're here, and now we can get back to it. So if you have questions, please stand. We'll start this round with Mr. Dickman, then Mr. Warman, then the lady there that we mentioned back, and then we'll catch the rest of you in order. So right here. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Greg Dickman. I'm running for 3rd District Congress. But as a voter, I have a question. It's my litmus test as to who I may potentially vote for.